What's the worst case of entitlement you've ever seen at a World Cup match? I'd been saving for 2 years to take my dad to one. He grew up watching football on a cracked television in a town where the power went out more than it stayed on, and the one thing he'd ever wanted for himself was to stand in a real stadium once before he got too old to climb the stairs. When the tournament came close enough to drive to, I emptied the account I'd been building and bought 2 tickets in the lower section, close to the pitch. $640 each. I bought them through the official resale exchange from a seller whose name came up on the transfer as Grant Mercer. I screenshotted everything: the confirmation, the email, the green ownership transferred banner, because that's just what I do. My dad calls it paranoia. I call it the reason I've never lost a deposit. Match day. My dad wore the jersey he'd kept folded in a drawer for 15 years. He didn't say much on the drive, kept smoothing the fabric over his knee like he was afraid it might disappear. We scanned in, climbed down toward the pitch, and that's when we saw them. 2 men already in our seats. Row 4, seats 11 and 12, the exact numbers on our tickets. I checked twice, then leaned down and said, as politely as I could, "Sorry, I think there's a mix-up. These are our seats." The bigger of the two didn't even turn his head. He wore a watch worth more than my car and a blazer to a football match, which told me everything. "There's no mix-up," he said. "These are mine. Go find an usher." The steward, a younger guy named Hector, came over. The man in the blazer stood, towered over him, and held out a printed ticket like a badge. Row 4, 11 and 12, printed from the account. I don't do barcodes on my phone like a teenager. Hector glanced at the ticket, then at us, doing the math. 2 confident men in a blazer versus a tired guy and his quiet father. "Sir," he said to me, "if your tickets overlap, you'll need to take it up at guest services. These gentlemen were seated first." My dad touched my arm. "It's okay," he whispered. "We'll watch from somewhere. Don't make a scene." And that, him already folding, making himself smaller the way he'd done his whole life, is the part I couldn't let go. So I didn't make a scene. I asked one question instead. "Can I see the name on that printed ticket?" The man laughed. "Why, so you can copy it? It's my account. Grant Mercer. Look it up." I went very still, because I knew that name. I'd typed it into a transfer 3 weeks earlier. "Hector," I said, keeping my voice level, "before this goes anywhere, I want to show you something." I pulled out my phone. The screenshots were right there. The resale listing. The transfer from the account of Grant Mercer to mine. The timestamp. 19 days ago. 9:42 in the morning. The receipt for $1,280. And the email I'd almost ignored 4 days earlier. A notice that the original seller had filed a payment dispute, which I'd assumed was a glitch because the tickets still showed in my account. "He sold them to me," I said. "Then he tried to claw the money back and walk in on a duplicate he printed before the transfer locked. Same name, same seats, same man." The blazer's face didn't go red. It went gray. He started talking fast about how the system was unreliable, how he'd been double charged, how he just wanted what he paid for. But he'd already made his mistake. He'd said the name out loud, in front of Hector, before he knew what I had. Hector keyed his radio. A woman from Stadium Operations arrived, Dana Reyes, the kind of calm that comes from seeing every scam. She took my phone, scrolled the trail, then had Hector run both tickets through the validator. Mine came up green. The man's came up with a flag I couldn't read, but I watched Dana read it and look up at him differently. "Sir," she said, "this ticket was voided the moment the transfer completed, and the dispute on this account is going to our fraud team. I'm going to need you to come with me." He tried the name drop then, a sponsor he golfed with, what he'd do to her job. Dana didn't blink. "You can explain all of it upstairs," she said, and 2 larger stewards were already behind him. They walked him and his friend up the aisle while the whole section watched, his printed ticket still crumpled in his fist. Dana turned to my dad, gestured to seat 11, and said, "Sir, these are yours. Sorry for the wait." My dad sat down slowly, both hands gripping the railing, and looked out at the pitch he'd waited his entire life to see. The whistle blew. He didn't say a word. He just cried.